All right, perfect. So without further ado, I want to thank our employer partner, Jubilant HollisterStier, for joining us for this event and welcoming us into their office, giving us an inside look at who they are, what they do, the many opportunities that exist there. I know as we were advertising the event, we talked about how they're on a path for growth, which is really, really exciting. And I definitely see Jubilant as just a gem in our neighborhood. It's an organization that's often overlooked or not really out in the public eye, but they're doing some incredibly cool and impactful work in the community. And I just appreciate this long-standing partnership. And I'm even more happy that we're able to have one of our alumni, Joe Longworth, join us for this event. He was a late addition, but he often comes and talks to our classes, students, and faculty, and it always just goes over incredibly well. So what we'll do is what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Liz Hegelson. She is the talent acquisition manager out at Jubilant. And then she and Joe together will be providing an overview of the organization and the opportunities that exist and how you can connect with those. And then we'll jump into our panelist overview where they'll talk a little bit about themselves and what they do, and maybe share with us a thing or two that they wish they had known or think you should know before considering a career in their particular field. And then after that, we'll get through as many of the questions as we can. I appreciate all of you submitting your questions ahead of time. Like I said, I'll try to get through as many as we can, but if for some reason I'm not able to get through those, please feel free to reach out and I would be more than happy to help you get connected with the right person to get your questions answered. So with that, Joe, Liz, would you like to take over?
Sure. Well, welcome everybody. We're excited that you guys are joining this event, and we're excited to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing and the growth that we are expecting. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. He can talk to you a little bit about our companies and just an overview, as well as I know Joe will be hiring many people in the next few years as well as our expansion comes into play. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. And thanks, Nate, for having us out to kind of share JHS with this group. It's awesome to see so many people interested in who we are and what we do. We are kind of a quiet community partner. I think this last year we've gotten probably more press in the last 1 year than we've had in the last 20. So our name's getting out there a little bit, but I'm super passionate about what we do. I'm an Eastern alum. I was class of 09, the biotech program. I think I actually might recognize a couple people in here that I've talked to in the past. Taylor, what's up? Yeah, and I love JHS. I love what we do here. What we are is we have effectively two sides, two companies in one building. So on one hand, we make products from biological starting materials that are then turned into immunotherapies to desensitize immune systems. So if you have like a really, really serious and potentially life-threatening allergic reaction to something, you could go see an allergist and they would use products like ours to desensitize and train your immune system to manage the risk that you would have in anaphylactic shock. Some people also do that just if they have a really serious allergy that is impacting their life and they want to go through the injection series to get that desensitized. That's a product that we make. It's actually our 100-year birthday this year. We're one of the oldest drug companies in the country. We had FDA license number 3. And we have some super funny inspection letters from like the Department of the Treasury in the 40s, like where the inspector's like coming and staying at the president's house and like having dinner with his wife. And that's like 2/3 of the letter. And then the end is like, also PS, fix these 7 things. Audits are a little bit different now. So that's one half of our business. We're super proud of it. We're a pioneer in that market. Everything that we do is injected into the human body. So we make sterile injectable products. So we inject those allergenic treatments. And then the other half of our business is we are also a contract manufacturing service provider. So as part of the COVID response, it's a really good lens to look at what we do from a really specific and pretty applicable perspective. So we had a global health crisis. In January of last year, we fired up production on remdesivir, which is something we had actually made with one of our partners in response to an Ebola outbreak in Africa in 2016. We were trying to race a product to the field to save Ebola patients during that outbreak. Once we had an indicator that there was a problem coming out of China, before there was really any cases in the US, we went into full-scale production on remdesivir to begin stockpiling that. So big pharma, let's call them like intellectual property owners or sponsors, they own the molecules, they own the technology. A lot of the time they own the supply chain, so like all of the starting materials. But what they're not great at is, in a flexible and agile way, making products to meet the international demand. So if you think of a chemical plant or a production facility, has anyone ever been to a brewery and watched beer getting made? I hope most of you have at this point. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Hopefully you get a better education than where you're getting at Eastern. Just kidding. What we do is pretty much really, really small beer bottling. So if you've been to like the Kokanee Brewery, they actually have some equipment that looks almost exactly like ours. And if you think about like a big pharma company like a Pfizer or a Merck, they've got buildings like the size of football fields with lines that are really, really good at making one thing in incredible volumes all year long. They're not very good at making small batches of things to meet changing demand in the market. And that's where we come in. So we're a flexible contract supplier. They can transfer that production technology to us, and then we can make that product for them very quickly. We're incredibly good at it. We're one of probably the highest quality providers on the market. I don't think we're probably the cheapest, and I don't think we have the highest output. I would put the quality of what we make up against anybody. So we were used pretty extensively as part of Operation Warp Speed. Liz, there's like 4 products we can talk about, right? Without me getting in trouble.
Yes, you're correct.
Perfect. So we made the remdesivir, which was the first treatment, which was really intended to be like a life-saving drug to get you off a ventilator. We then pivoted into launching 2 more treatments and a vaccine. So we make the Novavax vaccine. Unfortunately, it's not the Moderna, the Pfizer that I got injected with the Moderna, had my second shot last Friday. So almost free. We're getting there. Yeah, but we make the Novavax vaccine. That production's been scaling up for several months now. Hopefully they get their authorization to release to the market soon. We're anticipating it any week. And then we also make 2 pretty interesting antibody treatments. So one of them we make for Eli Lilly. It's the bamlanivimab. Jimmy Fallon has a great skit on bamlanivimab if you want to watch him try to say that word real fast in a song. It is an interesting drug in that it's a treatment, but it also confers some like really temporary immunity. So if you're going into a high risk environment, you can take that drug. And then we also make the, actually, I think that's all the ones I can talk about. Is that it, Liz? Am I out? There's one more that I don't know that I can talk about.
I'm not sure if that one's quite there yet.
Perfect.
So yours are good. Yeah, that's 3.
Plus one that you don't get to know about. Someday you can hear about it.
2 more, actually. I've heard there's 2 more coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so one of the things we've done as a flexible contract manufacturer is really just change our entire lives around getting this product out to the market. So it really impacted everyone across the organization in about every way possible. And it's just really cool to be part of the response effort to the coronavirus in little Spokane, Washington, which is really weird. But we are a supplier of choice for a lot of our manufacturers. So that's kind of what we do. We're a site of about, what are we, like 850, 820 now, Liz?
750.
750. And then we're breaking ground on some expansions coming up in the next year. So we'll be installing a new high-speed production line. We have 2 commercial high-speed lines now. We have 2 like low-speed lines. And then we also have manual filling, where people use like a peristaltic pump to fill like just 100 vials, really, really small batches, up to 500,000 vials. And we're building a 3rd line right now. We've just gone through the capital acquisition process, and we'll be breaking ground soon. So we will be going through a hiring wave, should probably expand the headcount on the site pretty substantially. And then in the 5-year plan, hopefully we're building another high-speed line as well. So seeing a lot of investment deep into the Spokane area from our parent organization. We are part of a national and international company called Jubilant. We have sister pharmaceutical manufacturing sites throughout North America and a few in India as well. We are one of 2 sterile injectable sites. We also have like some solid dose sites, tablets, topical creams, some eye ophthalmic treatment. We have a radio pharmaceutical division. We don't make those in Spokane, we make them in Montreal, but like nuclear imaging materials. So you make a batch and then 2 days later, half your batch is gone. So that's like the only thing crazier than what we do is radio pharma. Yeah, lots of different experience, tons of opportunities, especially as we grow. We have jobs from receiving raw materials, testing for their quality to make sure they're suitable for use. We have jobs for people bringing equipment online. We have jobs for folks that are just really great problem solvers and know how to investigate a complicated problem and come up with very scientifically sound solutions. But I'll kind of let the rest of the panel talk about specifically what we do. My title now, for those of you that I talked to before, I was the compliance manager for 5 years here. I graduated Eastern. I worked at in clinical genetics for a year and a half, and then wanted to go to industry and out of the clinic. So I started in the validation team, which is like writing experiments to prove that our equipment and processes do what we claim that they do. In pharma, you have to prove everything with direct evidence. So I wrote those experiments and executed those for about a year. Then I went to process engineering to help design our processes to be better. And then from there, I went into quality, where I was our site compliance manager. And then I have since moved into the engineering department. So now I'm the senior engineering manager. So I have ownership of the engineering and project management teams. So really kind of moving to a more strategic position to make sure our site is capable of doing what we would like to do in it for the next 30 to 50 years. That's the synopsis of my experience.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to chime in real quick with, as Joe talked about, our expansion. So we'll be, of course, adding a line 3, which could be 200, 250 employees. And then if we do add a 4th line, that'll be up to about 400 individuals. But we have a wide range of positions open now, and hopefully within the next year to 2 years, we'll actually have more internships available. As departments are getting more staffing, they're going to have more availability to do internships and help bring more students on for summer internships. So that's something that we're looking to hopefully get to soon. And I know Joe is one department that's very excited about that as well. So, but with that, there's the 3 individuals that are here for our panelists. All are newer to our company, but they can sort of talk about how they have started in more of an entry-level position maybe with us and are working themselves up, but how their degrees sort of help them get to where they're at right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine, and she can introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she does.
Hi guys, thanks for having us all out here. I'm super excited to talk to you guys. So my name is Catherine Kent, and I graduated in 2018 from Florida State University with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. From there, I worked in small commercial prototype design for about a year and a half, and then I switched over to playground construction and design for about a year, and I've been with Jubilant HollisterStier now for about 2 years. I am in the engineering department, so I work on the CMO side, the clinical manufacturing side. My primary responsibilities are getting new equipment in for the facility, and commissioning it through purchasing all the qualification documents we have to do to prove that what we purchased is what we purchased and it's going to work the way we expect it, and then turning that over to the line. This past year, I've been really lucky to work on one of the treatment projects that Joe was mentioning. I was working with the Lilly group, and it was a really fun and exciting project. It was a lot of work, but it was really cool, and it was really interesting to be involved in such an important project. So for that project, my primary responsibilities were getting all of the equipment in that we needed to manufacture and store their product here on the site. And then assisting with any equipment issues that they had. In addition to working on commercial projects, my other primary responsibilities are supporting the line with whatever equipment issues they have. So anytime the line goes down, if they have problems with air handlers, anything like that, that's one of the things that engineering jumps into. So one of the questions that we got sent out was something that we had known or others should know before pursuing a similar career. I think one of the big things is engineers are often known as being antisocial, or you go into STEM thinking you won't really have to work with a lot of people, but that is not the case. A major part of any position in STEM is working with others. And it's really important that you foster your social skills and your ability to communicate not only with technical people, but also with non-technical people. More often than not, we get pulled into investigations where something in the line has gone unexpectedly. And we as engineers need to provide input as to what could have possibly caused that from the equipment standpoint, and provide rationale of, is there something wrong with the equipment? Is there a way we need to fix it? Is there something wrong with how we have people interacting with the equipment? Work on those people skills. They're really important. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mutsa.
Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everyone. I am Mutsa Chiromo, and I am a QA compliance specialist here at Jubilant HollisterStier. I graduated from Whitworth in 2019 with a biochemistry degree, and I came to Jubilant HollisterStier literally straight after. So I graduated in December, and January 6th, I was right here. I was working under Joe for a little bit, and then he left us. But that was pretty cool. So in my role as QA compliance specialist, I think Joe even mentioned this a little bit. We kind of deal with investigations, and this can be in any kind of shape or form. So there are different deviations and kind of incidents that could occur on site, basically whenever we deviate from the process, right? So this can be from as simple as a calculation to one of our equipment is not working in the way that we expect it to. And a deviation is opened, and sometimes this could have an impact to the product, sometimes it doesn't. And my team, we usually work with the ones where impact is most likely, product is most likely impacted. And so through that process, we go in and we really just dig in, investigate thoroughly what could have gone wrong. And we work with engineering people like Catherine, when she was mentioning that, we go and ask for their help in terms of, what are their thoughts? What could have happened? Because in my department, we're not really the SMEs on the ground who are working with these processes or the machines. And so there's a lot of teamwork and a lot of communication across the board. And you have to work with a variety of people to kind of get to that root cause. And so in many cases, we are able to find the root cause with the help of many different teams. In some cases, we aren't. In those cases that we aren't, we have a list of most likely root causes, and we kind of have to deal with every one of those things. And so during the investigation phase as well, we're looking into, okay, so what could have been done? And so what I've learned a lot is, since I was coming straight from, I was an outside hire, I'm still kind of learning the processes as they are. And so you'll find that some of my team members have actually worked on the line, and so they have a better understanding. So for me, whenever I have a deviation, first things first is, how does this process even work? Like on a normal day, how is it supposed to work? And then, okay, let's take it back. What actually happened? And I found that it's been really helpful. And I think Joe has even emphasized this for me, that it's really helpful to actually have those people who don't really understand, because sometimes when something goes wrong, people can just, they won't really take too much note of the nitty-gritty things. And so when we come in, we're like, what does this button do? Why do you even do that? What is the purpose, And in asking those questions, we can actually drive and find what the root cause is. And so it's been an incredible journey. And like I said, we work with just about anybody on site. anyone, from the techs all the way to senior managers, directors, head of site, anybody can be involved in our deviations. And so that's kind of the beauty about it. There's a lot of diversity, a lot of variety. You're pretty much kept on your toes all the time. And even to go into the question of what I wish I knew, I think I wish I knew that the learning curve remains steep for quite a while. And when I came in, I was like, you know what, in 3-4 months I'll have this and I'll be good to go. And I still find myself asking a lot of questions, and it honestly is a humbling experience because I realize how much I still don't know. And I think in even realizing that helps me do my job even better. And so I think there is a lot of intentionality in terms of bringing people who aren't too familiar with the processes, because we really get to break it down into as small of pieces as we can. And there are a lot of tools that we use as well to help us with that. One of them is like a Sologic chart, a root cause chart that kind of helps us to map out what everything looks like in terms of finding the root cause. Essentially, what we want to do is communicate what we've heard, what we have investigated to either the client or the auditor. Someone who's never heard of this process should be able to read my report and be like, oh, okay, I understand, I can see this. And so that's amazing, because I don't know anything from the beginning. And so I can write something that someone who's just coming in can look at and understand from that point of view. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do, always everywhere, all the time. But definitely such an amazing experience. And I will turn it over to Deborah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Dedeji. I currently work at Jubilant HollisterStier. I also went to Whitworth, and I did graduate in 2019. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry and a Bachelor of Arts in Math. And I work for the Environmental Monitoring Department at JHS. And I would like to call us the jack of all trades, because we actually work with everyone and we actually work with everything. We're part of quality units, so anything that requires quality, we're always there. So we handle products. We have to take product samples before each run starts. We also take a WFI sample, which is water for injection. So every night we collect those water samples for every line we have, because we're always in production, and we also need to test to make sure the waters that we're using to make our products are up to the standard. They don't have any bacterial growth. And we're basically saying everything we use to make our product is as clean as it can be. We also do weekly monitoring of ISO 8s, which is where we prep most of our materials. And we're just taking those samples again, just making sure that the rooms we're prepping these materials that are going into the ISO 5, which is the sterile filling rooms, are actually clean enough to actually be in those rooms. We also do monthly reviews of LUMAX. So we're just checking to make sure people are documenting things as they go, because this also helps in deviations. It helps us with, in case someone forgets to put something down, we can actually refer back to those LUMAX and be like, hey, you actually wrote this right here, so this should be able to help. I work the graveyard shift, so I am one of the very few techs that actually goes into the filling rooms. So I actually am fortunate enough to see most of the production. So I like to consider myself special since I get to actually see it. So every time I read on the news that something's happening in Jubilant, I always tell everyone, I'm like, I was in the room when that was made, because it actually just makes me feel really happy and I can brag about it. So why won't I? we handle a lot of, we have to read a lot of SOPs. So I would say that's something that was really helpful with getting a degree in chemistry because I came right out of college and this is my first real job outside of college. So I have written SOPs before in college, so it made it easier to be able to read SOPs and follow SOPs because everything we do in the lab requires an SOP. And usually when you have a deviation or an incident, the first question they ask you is, did you follow your SOP? So it's always very important to be able to read and understand your SOPs. I think two qualities that are very important for this job is efficiency. You need to learn how to be efficient, but also aseptic. So being efficient without messing up the product we're making, because you always have to remember this is going into humans. We're injecting these things into humans. So you want to be as clean, as sterile as possible, but you also want to do your job within a certain time frame to ensure these products are released on time. Something else will be adaptation, because we're always revising SOPs. We're having new programs we work with, like MODA is a new one we've actually got in the EM lab. So you need to be able to adapt to all these new changes. You need to be able to learn the programs because that's what you're going to be doing your job with for the next 2-3 years. So you need to learn every part of it. You need to be able to troubleshoot and all of that. I love JHS. I love the people. And so I think it's been an amazing blessing to be there for me. And I actually just love gowning and being in the sterile core. So I don't know. That's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. That was awesome. And I'll just say it's super obvious that you each very much enjoy the work that you do, and that that you derive a lot of I don't know, reward out of it, right? That you take a lot of pride in the work that you do, and that you're very proud of the work that you do. And I think that's really, really cool. And I'll just have to say, I've come out and visited a couple of times, and I've worked with Liz far more than that. And every single time I've had that same sense anytime I've interacted with somebody from the organization. So it's just really cool to see that again, especially on this stage. So I guess I have to mention this because I can't go without doing it. Oh my gosh, Catherine, I had no idea that a playground construction person, like that was a career path that you could explore, but now I'm gonna have to think about my life choices because that might be what I need to do. I couldn't let that slip. Okay, so what I would like to do now, we had all the students who are participating, they submitted a lot of great questions. So what I would like to do is go through some of those. And you know, I'm not sure which of these would be most appropriate for the panelists or for Liz. So what I would say is whoever feels comfortable maybe answering the question, or you think you have something to contribute, please feel free to do that. We definitely want to give as much information as we can to the students and the folks attending. So these, I'm going to couple these two together because they're very, very specific. But I think this might be more in Liz's realm. So we had a question about whether or not you offer cybersecurity internships, and then also if you have any doctoral level opportunities, especially in industrial engineering.
So for the first question, we don't at Jubilant HollisterStier, maybe at a corporate level we would, but for that we don't have anything local. And then maybe Joe, can you jump in on the second one more so, since that's an engineering question?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on what you mean by doctoral level. We definitely, our engineering team has members from lots of different disciplines, chemies, mechanical engineers. I don't think we have any electricals right now. Definitely something that fits well within the team. We do have like a business excellence team that looks at our manufacturing processes for the application of kind of Lean Six Sigma methodologies, which sometimes is where a lot of the industrial engineering tilt is tack times optimization, statistical process control. We definitely have all those types of opportunities within our team. I don't have any positions that require a PhD. Most of our positions we're looking at really two factors. What is the technical aptitude and skill set that comes in? And then also what is the exposure to heavy regulatory demand? So it is a little bit different working in pharma. There's a substantial set of rules that we abide by. Most of us have rule books on our desks all the time. Like there's Europe, the US, and Canada right there. So just being familiar with working in a fairly intense regulatory environment, like the print is small, pages are many. So we're really kind of looking for those two attributes, is how well does that fit? Sometimes in any technical job, there's a balance of documentation and output. And pharma can be heavy on the documentation side sometimes. The output's really, really satisfying, like very technical equipment, potentially incredibly complicated equipment. So I don't know if that kind of answers the question. If anybody has like a follow-on for that, I can definitely field that.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jino. I think that's really helpful. And like you said, if there are follow-up questions, we can help get that person connected with either you or Liz. Okay, so each of you have touched on this at least a little bit, and it's pertaining to the skills and qualities that you might look for in a strong candidate for these types of opportunities. And so, I mean, immediately I think, you know, attention to detail, problem solving skills, you know, just those types of things you would expect in this sort of an environment. But is there anything else that you might want to talk about in terms of the skills you look for or the human qualities that you look for when hiring a new employee?
I would say one of the things when we're talking to people is just their passion to help people, right? You have to have that passion every day, because with what we do, it can be, you know, go from everything's going great to suddenly a major disaster. But at the end of the day, being able to know I'm doing this because I'm helping save people's lives. So just, you know, seeing that passion when people talk about what their career or what they want for their career, if they're just starting out or what they've done in the past, you can sort of see when you're talking to people that what lights them up or what excites them. So I think when I'm initially screening for people, just talking to them, I can sort of get that feeling from them. And just being a sponge, you know, when you're talking to people, can they be a sponge and learn and take feedback as well? I think are some of the big skill sets I look for. And Joe may be able to add, since he's been, you know, hiring people for many years now for Jubilant.
Yeah, I think probably the number one thing that I look for is somebody that's got just an incredible amount of like competitive fire and personal ownership of their own success. So somebody that's just really compelled to be the best at what they do. They've got a demonstrated track record where they're equipping themselves to become the best. And then really looking for learning agility. So I think one of the things that becomes really obvious the second you graduate that is not as obvious when you're in school is just how far away you get from the classroom knowledge that you accumulated really quickly. And it never, ever stops. I wish I could tell you that you will find a groove and you will become the master of the world. But I mean, the market changes. COVID dramatically changed the way that we work. Operation Warp Speed was really fascinating that we didn't reduce any requirements to get a drug to market. We just parallel pathed a lot of things at great cost. And that's really what Operation Warp Speed does, was applied a lot of wheel grease with money so that we didn't have to wait to see if processes were going to bear fruit before we invested the next capital lump into moving forward. We just threw all the money at it, did everything in parallel out the gate. And then a lot of products never came to market because they didn't bear out, even though the investment was already spent. But just kind of taking those lessons and say, well, are there ways to be more intelligently flexible and efficient? Can we get products to market at lower cost or with higher speed? So even if you're in the same role, the way that you practice your job changes. We follow something called the Current Good Manufacturing Practices, or CGMPs, and the C is there for a reason. It does change frequently. And then if you choose to take a track like the one I took, like I'm going from department to department, learning whole different chunks of how the industry works every few years, and it just requires a lot of learning flexibility and agility. And I've found that people that seem to have a lot of fun are the same people that have a high capacity for learning new things. So if you have high ownership, but also high ability to learn, then man, what a satisfying work environment to be in. So those are kind of my top two.
Very good. And so for our panelists, Deborah, Catherine, and Mutsa, is there anything else you might want to add? I thought it was really interesting. Each of you sort of had mentioned that you get to work with so many different people that, the people skills are very important because the interactions that you have. And I was wondering, is there anything else that you want to add, about your particular areas?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I think one of the most important things is also being able to take failure well and learn from it. It's very difficult, especially as Joe was saying, being in an environment that changes so quickly and so consistently. You're going to have setbacks and you're going to have failures, but being able to take those and own them and learn from them and keep moving forward is really important. I think in any industry, but especially a fast-paced, highly regulated industry like pharma.
And to even add to that, I would say, for I'm sure many other departments as well, good stress management skills are so important. I'm in a position where a lot of the work that I do is really self-motivated. You do have a certain timeline, but how you go about that is really up to you. And so you really need to know, when things are piling up, okay, what do I need to do to take care of myself? And a lot of the teams here are really helpful, and you need to be able to know when you need to ask help. I think that's one of the things that I really had to learn in terms of being someone new here and understanding that I don't understand everything. So knowing what you don't know and being willing to open up and to ask those questions and to ask for help and reaching out, I think will take you a very long way.
And just to add to that, being open to learning, you can't go into this job memorizing things because things change, especially in the EM lab. Just because you did something a certain way yesterday doesn't mean it's going to remain the same today. So you have to come into work each day with the mindset of, I'm going to learn something new today. You don't come in with the mindset of, oh, I know this, I'm going to do it. Because then you get into a rhythm, and that's how a lot of people make mistakes and we get deviations because people come in thinking, oh, I already know this, so I'll do it this way. No, you actually have to come into work every day, every night, whatever your shift is, with the intention of, I'm going to learn something new today.
That's really awesome insight. And I think that's super helpful for anybody who might be thinking about, this type of a career, because oftentimes, I think that we do look for that routine, that certain level of comfort. But obviously working in this sort of a field, like you said, that could lead to mistakes. So very good insight. Thank you for sharing that. Next question. So culture at Jubilant, just wondering if there's anything that you would want to share with the group about what the culture is like there. I mean, I immediately, some of the takeaways I see, obviously quality, continued growth, learning, adaptation, and that sort of thing. Is there anything that you would like to share with everybody about the culture at Jubilant?
So the culture at Jubilant is very collaborative. It's very much an interdepartment working type of feel. As working in the engineering department, I work with managers, directors, and with technicians on the floor. And I've never had someone say, you can't come into my office, my door is closed, please go away. You know, people are very open to working with you, and, you know, as a member of JHS, you need to be also open to working with them.
And to add to that, I think people are very personable. Coming in, you know, this being my first real job, I was expecting that, you know, when we're here, it's all about work and it's just focused. No one needs to know about me and what I'm about. But I found that, you know, people are very willing to just open up. And so a lot of the people I've worked with, I know them more on a personal level now. You know, in the middle of an investigation, it's like, oh yeah, so by the way, where are you from? And then we have a whole conversation about Zimbabwean food, for example, you know. And so people are always just really willing to open up. If I think it's a two-way thing. You also need to show that, you know, you're also very open-minded. And so I've really enjoyed forming some of those relationships that aren't necessarily very work-related, but also you're working with people, and everyone has a story. And so I've really just learned to be a part of that and to learn other people's stories.
Also, I would say, personally, for me, I see everyone I go into the feeling room with as a unit of a family, because we're all working towards a certain goal, and our goal is to make product that people can actually use. So technicians will jump in to help each other. Like, I do a plate change and there's someone going behind me to wipe the barrier, so it takes less time for me to do that. People are just always willing to jump in, and people actually really care. And I would say I came into the job thinking, oh, I would just know the people in my department. But I would say I pretty much know at least one person from every department, because that's just how it is over there. Everyone says hi and everyone's just willing to help.
I was just going to add too, along with that family, we have a lot of aunts and uncles or brothers and sisters and grandparents that all work for us. And I've never worked at a company like that where, you know, so-and-so is like, oh, that's my grandma over there and my mom works in this department. And so when there's that close family bond, people, I feel like, work harder to achieve the best result, but also they care about bonding with other people too, and want to develop those personal relationships. So it's definitely a different kind of culture, just because we do have so many actually family members or even friends that are referring other friends to come work there as well. So I just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, I think it's a unique thing about us. So I mean, it influences all of our planning. It influences our strategy. Most of us are really passionate about leaving behind a company that we want our grandkids to work in, because we literally work with people whose grandparents still work here. So it does give us a bit of a longer perspective than I think of maybe a lot of other players in this market space. So we're not running around just like a 5 or 10 year strategy plan. We are all actually really invested in leaving behind a durable legacy and an enjoyable workplace that's a healthy place to be in, and a healthy and a safe place to invest your very best effort into, not only for you, but for your kids and your kids' kids.
Awesome. Very insightful. Thank you very much. So another two-parter here, but I think they're very related. So let's try to tackle them together. What experience do you look for your entry-level positions? And what advice would you have for students whose lives have sort of been impacted by the pandemic? And when I think about that, you know, because we're asking about experience, you know, maybe having an internship or two under their belt. But as we know, a lot of internships were canceled because of the pandemic. So what experience do you look for in those roles? And what advice would you have for students who may have been impacted in that way?
Great question. So with a lot of our entry-level roles, we actually only look for individuals with a GED or high school diploma. However, there are roles that we do look for bachelor's degrees or any type of degree. But with that experience, those people that just need to be open to trying somewhere or a department or a position that they may not ultimately want, right? So Deborah is in EM for us, and I'm sure that may not be her long-term career growth up, where she's looking to go, I guess you could say. And so for her, it's a good foundation for her to get in and learn about Jubilant, understand the industry, learn some new skills. And then as she grows, she's able to move within the company like Joe did, for example. And so at coming out of school, or you weren't able to get your internship, you're graduating, just be open to, hey, maybe I don't need to go right into the lab as a scientist. Maybe I can start on the filling line as a process tech and learn how the filling lines work, because in the end, that's going to help me get to my next opportunity, whether it is in the lab or it's in tech transfer or whatever it may be in that aspect. So I would just say that's one of the biggest things that when I'm talking to students right now, it can be, frustrating and unfortunate of what we've been through, but at the same time, there's a lot of different avenues you can take when it comes to your career during this time.
I think the crisis has also given everybody a really compelling platform to evaluate how have you navigated this change and this disruption, and what skills did you learn about time management? How did you learn about how to grow your skill set when the normal process to do that literally just evaporated? How did you stay connected with your peers? How did you continue to network and learn and invest in yourself? There's a lot of great kind of forced learnings by going through this that if you don't think to capture them, they're easy to overlook, because it's really hard to have everything that's just your foundation of what life looks like be changed in some kind of way. I can't reinforce enough what Liz said. My advice would be very critical of why you are looking for your first job, because there are decisions that you're going to have to make. When I graduated, it was the middle of the recession. So I had 2 technical degrees and could not find a job for 6 months, and kind of wound up settling and finding a job that was interesting to me. But I had to go through a big process of like, what am I really looking for? Am I willing to move to a big city? Am I like, where are my values? And then how do I find an organization whose values align with mine, where I can contribute in a meaningful way and I see some runway for growth? And then once I kind of learned how to do that, like not in a million years would I have told you I was going to be an engineering manager someday. It's absolutely insane that I have this job, but I've just kind of responded to the openings that are available, and just look for how does my skill set benefit the organization, and make sure that my values continue to be aligned with the organization's values, so I feel safe investing everything I've got into the workspace. And then that has always worked well for me. So that would be my advice coming out is what is the why behind you're looking for a job, and then find somebody that honors that and aligns with that. It's okay to be a bit picky, but maybe keep your mind open as to like, what is your day-to-day task? That's just a moment, right? It's another learning experience. It's new skills. It's not going to dictate necessarily the rest of your life. Do be intentional. Like there may be some paths you don't want to start down, but keep an open mind and make intentional choices.
Building off what Joe and Liz have said, I do think it's really important to be open, especially as a new grad coming out into this unpredictable and interesting new environment. As a new grad, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. And I, for a hot minute, thought I won't accept anything less. This is the one thing that I want to do. And the more I kind of looked around, the more open I became. I've had a lot of job experience that I wasn't expecting. I never thought that I would be working in pharma, but lo and behold, this is honestly one of the best jobs I've ever had. This is my first corporate position, and so I was really hesitant about going into a big corporation. But once I had my interview and started really looking into what Jubilant believed in, what were their values, what were the people who were going to be directly, my direct superiors, what were their values, the more I became convinced that this was a good fit for me. This was the job I wanted to do. So just be very open, don't cross something off just because it doesn't sound like what you want to do, or it's not something you ever thought you would be doing. Yeah. Oh, also, sorry. For those that are interested in looking to try and get some more experience, maybe you're like in your junior year of college or so, there are online freelance opportunities for STEM majors. That was one of the things that I did during school to help kind of pay some bills and get some experience under my belt. I was personally using Upwork, which is a great chance to do like freelance design work or freelance statistics if you're on the industrial engineering side. So look into those opportunities. Again, just be open. Just because it's not what you thought you'd be doing today doesn't mean it's not something you're going to enjoy or something that's going to lead to your next career step.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I was going to mention too, one of the fun things that always comes up when Liz and I talk about getting that relevant experience, and I think this goes to what Catherine was just talking about, is that there are a lot of things you could do that you might not think are relevant experience, but kind of give you a foot in that world. And so like one of the crazy things that always comes to mind to me is, the person that goes and collects like the dander from the animals or shakes the pollen out of the trees and collects that, right? And so those types of opportunities exist, and I would just recommend, hey, keep your mind open, especially if you have a little bit more time, because you might have the opportunity to get some of that experience without even knowing it. So yeah, just keep an open mind. So before, we're getting short on time here, but one of the questions I really want to touch on, because we actually had 12 of the students who registered had asked about this, and then this was something that definitely the schools were interested in learning more about. We would just like to hear a little bit about what diversity, equity, and inclusion means at Jubilant, and maybe some of the initiatives going on there, and what you're doing, around that conversation. I think, as you know, as educational institutions, we're often leading those conversations, and it's obviously really, really important to us and becoming more and more important in our communities. And so we just love to hear about what you all are doing with that at Jubilant.
I know that we're really trying to be more involved in our community and even the colleges, like you're saying. But another thing that we've talked about just recently is how are we going to make our footprint bigger, not just in our communities, but also, Pacific Northwest and even national, because as a company, we're growing and expanding, but we also want to, be available for everyone in North America too. So like Catherine came from Florida, but just making our footprint bigger and being more involved in our community. And so I know there's some initiatives that we're looking at being involved this year to help with diversity and inclusion and all that kind of stuff too. So I don't know, Joe, you sit at a higher level than me, if there's been any other information that you've received or that you know of that we're going to be doing as well.
Yeah, so as far as like a focused initiative, I don't know that there is like a major focused drive right now. It's kind of more baked into who we are. So we are a multinational organization. So kind of that diversity component is built into the way that we function. So we have, I work with people that speak different languages. I try to learn a piece of them to just communicate like respect. It's always fun to talk trash to somebody in their own language when they mess up on a project. So there's that bonus for sure. And then just in like our general hiring practices and values, like we do very weird stuff. Like there's a process where we take a commercial freeze dryer and we pump it full of an imaging gas, which is a super weird way to use a freeze dryer, but we found out a way to do it. And when you're in kind of an agile workspace, those different perspectives are not a nice to have, they're a need to have. You have to have people that are going to approach a problem from all different angles. And that includes making sure that your workforce really looks like the community that you serve in it, and bringing in all the different perspectives that you can to make sure that you have the best equipped team to respond to any issue. And that's something that's just kind of baked into how we staff our teams and what we value as an organization. And then of course, on like the equity front, there is a rigorous process whenever we're staffing any position to make sure that the compensation is fair, regardless of any factor. Just looking at the impact of the role on the company, we evaluate that every single time we have a job. We kind of revisit those topics of, are we recognizing and honoring people's contribution to the organization in a fair way and in a consistent way that's reflective of their skill set and what they bring to the team. So I think it's definitely something that we value really highly. It's for sure like a more prominent national topic than it's ever been. So I think you see different, some different like lunchroom conversations happening that are a really healthy thing, and just taking advantage of the opportunity to be in a pretty good sized employer to just get to know some people and get to know people from different walks of life. I think that's been really valuable to me personally going through this. Had some really great conversations. And I think it's part of what we just organizationally value.
Outstanding. Well, I appreciate that and you offering that perspective. You know, I, for one, just want to thank Liz for putting together such a great panel. I'll be honest, you know, we all know that females are underrepresented in most STEM fields. So seeing this panel of predominantly female folks from your organization, I think it means a lot, you know. And if you look at the folks we have attending this presentation today, a lot of them are females, and I hope that they could see themselves in your shoes and doing that sort of work. And I hope hearing from you personally about what that experience is like, you know, really gives them that extra motivation and the confidence boost to know that they, you know, that they can do this and that they belong there along with you. Because, you know, as much as it pains me to say it, I think they hear an opposite message from other people, you know, out there. So I really appreciate you, Liz, putting together this group of panelists. I think it's great. So before we step out of here, I just wanted to tell everybody everybody watching that some of the positions Liz had sent to me that are available, she had mentioned scientist, environmental monitoring, process tech manufacturing, engineer, and then in quality. I will put the website to find some of those open opportunities on their website in the chat box if you want that. But while I'm doing that, I just want to, again, thank everybody for participating, especially our panelists for sharing, you know, their perspectives and all of this great information about what they do and what it's like working at Jubilant. We really couldn't do it without these types of partnerships. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. We appreciate it.
All right, well, perfect. Without further ado, thank you all. And then if, you know, feel free to reach out to me if you happen to have any additional questions. I'd be more than happy to connect you with the team. All right, thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
All right, bye.